true crime author and criminologist. This is Best True Crime. Every episode, I take you on a journey to explore crime, forensics, and investigations. Hey everybody, my name is Judith A. Yates. I am a true crime writer and criminologist, and I am the creator and host of Best True Crime Video. And today we are talking to Mr. Brian Ward. He's the creator and host of the Dark History and Horror Con. And you've got a new look.
Yeah. All of this turned completely white, so I shave it off, and I decided, what the hell, we'll see what this looks like. So we're giving it a little whirl.
Yeah, if it goes white, I just dye it.
It's all white over here.
Oh, well, we'll dye it blue when we see each other. And I got a new chapeau. I got to get to the new chapeau, man. I love this hat. I love hats in general. So
I thought about wearing my little custom top hat, but I figured it's kind of cut off, so I didn't worry about it too much.
So then you look like you're just wearing a bowl on your head.
Exactly.
Okay, so you are the creator and host of the Dark History and Horror Con. Tell us what that is.
It is something I can't take complete credit for the idea. I always want to give credit to the guys that I drew the inspiration from, and that's Matthew Aaron, John Borowski, Rich Hillen, and Joe Hiles used to put on a show called The Crime Scene over in Indianapolis. I believe they did 3 of them. I was lucky enough to attend the 3rd and final. They brought together... they had Gigi Allen's brother Merle Allen and the Murder Junkies and some other bands. They held it at a bar where they just kind of could talk about the collection of murderabilia and hang out with true crime people. It seemed to kind of be fading a little bit. I asked those guys if they were okay with me kind of taking the concept and seeing what I could do with it. They all gave their approval, and I put on the very first one in a VFW hall in a little town. It was about a 3-hour show, drew about 30 people, but I had those guys over and some true crime authors over, and really just wanted to bring this community together and provide a place where fans of the true crime community could come and meet people that have written about some things, have maybe lived through some things that they might not necessarily know everything about. You and I have had discussions about the ID channel and Crime Con and things like that. Not these giant celebrities that have latched onto the genre, but the people that have been into it for years and have actually lived and breathed it. Right.
Okay. And when is this going to be held and where?
This year it's going to be October 23rd. It's, I think, probably the first time I've done a one-day show since the first go-around. It just happened to work out with scheduling, and it's only going to be the one day, Saturday, October 23rd in Champaign, Illinois at the I Hotel and Convention Center, which is right on the U of I campus. It's right beside the football field and the basketball arena.
Oh, okay. And
yeah, so it is truly right there.
I've seen the photos, and it looks like a great venue. It looks like it's going to be comfortable for everybody, and enough space where you can look at the different booths and talk to the different people.
They built onto the convention center. The section we're going to have just opened in September. So it is truly state of the art. They gave me a tour. They have up lights. They have regular light. They have like 3 different kinds of lights in the convention room that they can strobe. They can do colors. They can do all that. I don't know that I'll do that. We'll probably just make it like red and black, just standard dark creepy people colors, but they have
go off, man.
Yeah,
I'm sad. Okay,
you got your black shirt on and your red hat, so I do.
Right? Yeah, this is a t-shirt that I got from the Children's Holocaust Museum in Tennessee, and I love it. I love it because I love the concept, and
right.
So I got a free t-shirt, and now I've got a hole in it, but it's like one of my favorite shirts.
It always happened. Yeah, your favorite ones get the holes the fastest.
Oh, yeah.
You wear them too much.
Because the cat, when he wants something, he sticks out one claw. He sticks out a toe and goes like this. So when you don't get, immediate, it's a claw. Yeah. Because the animals run this house. So
I have noticed. I thought it was usually the dogs, though.
Oh, no. We're just the just the servants to the animals.
Okay, I got you. Fair enough. Yeah, they've as far as the convention center, they've got drop-down screens that we can show things on. They have a pre-event area that is floor-to-ceiling glass,
Oh,
so it's got all
wow.
kinds of just natural light that comes in. We will have something that we haven't had in the previous times that you've been with us. Is they call them breakout rooms. So we'll have a separate room for the film festival. We'll have a separate room for the panel or speakers, and then a little tiny green room area that will be for just basically for the guests, folks like you, if you wanted to get off of the floor for just a little bit and get away. I think it holds 12 or 15. It's small, but that's all it needs to be. It's just a
Yeah.
break room in essence for the talent. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of things that we haven't had previous. Have a lot more spread out. The spots are measured out to be 8 by 8. That's provided by the venue, and they can fit 92 of them in there. So
Whoa.
hoping to have them all full.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say, we're getting close. I think we've got, I think we're right around 15 spots left. 5 of those I've set aside for tattoo artists, which we're having back this year.
And I need a new one.
Yeah, I just announced a guy today, Skylar Hyatt, Midnight Guardian Tattoos. He's from Southern Illinois. He used to do the tattoo conventions in Texas and Louisiana. So he's the first one we've announced. We're hoping to get some more on there as well. So yes,
Great.
we will have tattooing this year.
Awesome. Oh yeah, because I'm salivating. I'm thinking about, okay, which one do I want next? I think I've decided. So
that's always the toughest part because you always want more. See, I told you, I thought I heard one of your masters in there.
always, when I go online, always they got to bark.
Yep, that's always got to be the way. But hey, they need their airtime anyway.
Okay, well, tell me about you were talking about tattoo artists. Tell me about some more of your guests that's going to be at this Dark History and Horror Con that people can meet and greet, and what exactly are they going to be selling? What are they going to be doing?
Well, just announced yesterday, John Borowski. You're very familiar with John, I know.
He is an
John's a
excellent
filmmaker.
Yeah.
He is. He's done what was called his serial killer trilogy, the turn of the century guys, H.H. Holmes, Albert Fish, Carl Panzram. And then he did Serial Killer Culture, the movie, and 2 seasons of his TV series. His newest work is the Gacy movie that he's working on. He's interviewed a number of... I
cannot wait to read that. And I read his book. Now I've got to see the film.
Exactly. Yeah, he's got a number of the detectives from Des Plaines Police Department that he interviewed and given access to things that some people, well, normal folks don't get to see. So John will be able to share those tentatively, and I think probably extremely hopeful that Judith A. Yates from the Nashville area will be there.
I read all her stuff. She's good. Oh, yeah, I'll be there.
And I know she's going to be speaking. You're going to be speaking on Paul, is that right?
The Paul Dennis Reed case, yes.
Yep. And for those of you who have not had a chance to meet Judith or have her come to a bookstore or talk to you about that case, I remember you presented it for one of the first times a few years back at the show.
Several years ago.
And I usually don't have emotional reactions to things, but the way you present the case, yeah, you had me as close to tears as I've been in years.
Oh, thank you.
That's not an exaggeration at all. That's sitting there listening to you talk about it and the victims, which you and I are both, that's what it's mostly about. I mean, I hate to say it, and I know you and I have talked numerous times about how some people glorify these guys, and yes, I do have the imagery of the bad guys. Unfortunately, the reason I have to do that is nobody knows what the victims look like. Nobody knows the victims' names. These guys get all the headlines for who they are and what they do, and the victims are just forgotten about. I imagine that's probably always been the case with journalism and the way things go. It's just how you have to sell the news.
Yeah.
But when I use the imagery of these bad guys, it is to pique the interest of the person that just has a passing interest in it. Oh, hey, I recognize that. That's Pogo, right? Yes. Now, Now that you know who that is, let me tell you about Gregory Godzik. Let me tell you about Rob Zick. Let me tell you about Rob Peast.
Exactly.
These folks, unfortunately, lost their lives to this monster, and that's how you know who the monster is. That's the way I've always viewed it, Judith, and I think you and I are the same. Unfortunately, the victims' names get lost in the shuffle, and it's even worse with minorities. I do have John Farrick, who is from the Joliet area. He's hopefully going to be releasing a new book about an Illinois serial killer that nobody knows about.
Wow.
Because it was all black prostitutes or drug users, and he just kept on going because nobody seemed to care. And I know that's a topic you and I could probably talk hours about, the quote of the less dead victims,
Right.
sex workers and drug addicts, and that just doesn't seem to sell the papers when they get their lives taken by somebody like this, and it's a sad truth.
Right. And there's a issue. One of the other issues that I have is when we watch these shows, God, there's a ton of them now. I mean, it goes down to, killers who live next door to people who are nice and go bowling on Tuesday. I mean, there is a show on every type of murder. But the majority, I would guess probably 85%, just off the top of my head, are white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed females that are being killed.
Oh, yeah.
Are being stalked.
For sure.
And that angers me so much because look at, what's his name, Sam Little?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say Sam Little, yeah.
And he told the investigating officers, and he told the writers on his case, he said, I picked these people because nobody would miss them. And they were prostitutes, addicts. I think most of them, with the exception of one, were black females. And you think, if he says that, what are we doing wrong in society? So I think it's important to have these cons like Dark History and Horror Con, because we are using it to educate people.
Exactly. That's what I have always been about. I mean, that's why I just recently started my podcast. It's a simple title. It's Dark History Time with Brian. I just want to make people aware of some of the things that they might not know about, so they can look into them and educate themselves further on it. That's always been my position when it comes to this genre, is I just want to, everything that I've consumed, I would like to share with other people and maybe pique their interest in some cases that they don't know about, that they probably definitely should for some reason or another. Not just, the flashy guys. I mean, either one of us could sit here and talk about Bundy or Gacy or Dahmer. Everybody's done it ad nauseum. But I personally didn't know about Paul until I met you. I did not. I mean, what was his victim count? It was 8, 9?
That we know of.
Yeah.
There were 3 at McDonald's, 2 at Baskin's, and 2 at the Captain D's, and probably 1 in a Shoney's. But they didn't have enough information to make it stick. But they know he did it. Then there's a possible case in Texas that the man just died on death row, and a lot of people believe that guy was innocent, that it was Reed who conducted that crime. And I just heard about another case in Texas that they believe it was Reed, but unfortunately somebody else got caught up in the story and was arrested for it.
Right.
So there's just he was in Oklahoma, he was in Texas, he was in Tennessee, he was in Illinois. And who knows in between. And he always had a lot of flashy things, expensive guitars and monogram shirts and nice cowboy hats, because, he thought he was a recording star. How did he get those things? He sure didn't get it working at the bakery in Oklahoma.
Right, exactly. And it's cases like that. I guess I call them regional because I didn't hear about it. Even though he touched base in Illinois, I did not hear about it up here. And there's other ones that are just so similar that for some reason I wish I could figure out what decides to stay regional and what gets blown up nationwide and worldwide. Because nobody knew Sam Little until it was all said and done. The Grim Sleeper, I mean, nobody knows about him until it's all said and done, pretty much. There's I think 3 when I traveled to Kansas City, some sites that I went to in Kansas City. There's Oh shoot! Now I'm blanking out on the names.
But like for example, the case of John Bonet, Ramsey,
Yeah.
that crime that has yet to be solved yet. If we just saturate this case with publicity like it was, a
Mm-hmm.
Kardashian or a movie star or something,
Right.
then it's also has the potential to ruin the case.
Yes, exactly. And that was tried and decided in the court of public opinion within a month or two. It had to be the parents, and you and I have both worked in law enforcement. I hate to badmouth them, but there's times that they're in over their head, and Boulder was in over their head on that one for sure. I mean, when they first got on the scene wasn't secured for how many hours? I mean, it was nearly the whole first day of the discovery.
Right.
And it's just, and Boulder should have the resources. So I think it boils down to a lot of it is you have to have the resources, but you also have to have some knowledge of how these things go. And there is so many, I think, in law enforcement that don't want to educate themselves on how these type of perpetrators work. And I don't know if that's just because they think it's such a small anomaly that they don't need to. I don't know where that comes from. One of the police agencies that I work for, they looked at me sideways the entire time I was there, nearly 8 years. They thought I was the weird guy that was into serial killers. I'm like, you guys, it probably wouldn't hurt at least the investigators to have a passing knowledge on how this stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
But
your smaller police departments aren't going to have the resources that, say, New York City has. They're not going to have the money for the training or the traveling, or because profiling is not something that you take a course online and you're a profiler, or you watch Law and Order, Mulefoot, Texas. I mean, you're just not going to have that kind of knowledge from taking one course. Or that's, I talked to a profiler at one of the last events that I attended, and he is still taking classes, and he's been with the Bureau, 20 years, and he's still taking classes and educating himself and going through, FBI, this and that. So it's just not something you're going to get watching a TV show.
No. And I think that's what's always been my attraction. I know people talk about what brought you into this arena, and mine has always been, and I know it's not a phrase that I came up with, and I know it's not one that I can claim, but I always said endlessly fascinating. Mm-hmm. This genre is endlessly fascinating to me. I don't think we'll ever figure it out. I don't care how technologically advanced we get. You can't get inside somebody's physical, mental break, or, what do I want to say? You cannot break down physiologically what's going on in somebody's mind. We can do all the scans that we want in the world. We can run all the tests we want in the world. There's something in there that I don't think we'll ever see, because they've talked about serial killers. We can always look back at them and say, well, this happened. That's probably what led them to it. But you can never reverse engineer that. I mean, you have plenty of bedwetters. You have plenty of child abuse victims. You have plenty of things that have 2 or 3 of the things that serial killers ultimately end up having in their past that go on to be just fine. Mm-hmm. So it's always one of those things. I mean, I worked with a guy that came from an extremely abusive household, and here he is in public safety. Mm-hmm. And he would look at John Wayne Gacy, and he grew up in the same area, about 10 or 12 years behind Gacy. He's like, we essentially grew up in the same type of household. He goes his way and I go mine. So that's what will always intrigue me. And I mean, you've come across numerous cases yourself where you can look at it and say, well, yeah, that was probably destined to happen, or that came out of nowhere. And that's where we're at. And that's why I probably will always seek out more and more knowledge. And like you mentioned earlier, the TV shows, I will confess, I haven't watched ID Channel or any of those things for ages now.
Well, I just got asked to be on 2 more shows, so you better tune in. I need the numbers.
I will. I'll always tune in.
I have to sell books, man. I got bills.
Right. Well, I'll always tune into yours and Kelly Banaski's. I'll watch those episodes. Mm-hmm. But
Kelly's good.
But a lot of the other stuff it's just reaching, and they're just looking for viewership on the backs of other people, and that's I don't know. I have my opinion on corporate true crime as opposed to real true crime. And you and I are real true crime. And my
Thank
convention is real true crime. It's not
Thank you.
corporate true crime.
Well, I know one of the
Anytime.
last shows I did, he said, okay, now you need to say something like, he held the city in a grip of fear. And I said, I'm not going to say that.
Right.
Well, why not? It'd be good. And I said, because one, nothing holds a city in a grip of fear. Not even tornadoes or natural disasters, maybe 9/11, but there were still people who were unaffected.
Right.
So nothing holds everybody in the city in a grip of fear, And secondly, it's corny. I'm not going to say something like that. I will say that, the families or the victims or the survivors were affected this way, but I'm not going to say something stupid like, no one ever suspected. Well, who would,
Right. Yeah. If that was the case, we wouldn't have any of these guys, right? They wouldn't have a chance to become what they became.
Right.
So, yeah, all the cliches, I hate them. And it's, as much as I hate them, it's easy to see when they're coming. I mean, when you watch these shows or when you read certain tabloids or anything, it's easy to see okay, time for a cliche, and they'll plop it in there, and here it is.
It was a quiet neighborhood. My friend, I have a good friend that's in criminal justice, and she said, I never want to live in a quiet neighborhood because evidently that's where it always happens.
Right, yeah,
exactly. Every show says it was a quiet neighborhood.
There's
people didn't lock their doors.
And it's the quiet ones. Did you ever see George Carlin's skit on the quiet ones? He
No.
talks about why he's. Oh, Carlin was great. He's like, they always talk about it's a quiet one. It's a quiet one. He's like, well, I can guarantee you while you're watching a quiet one, a loud one will effing kill you. So he's like, you just never, yeah. If you've watched any of Carlin's stuff, he loves to tear apart all the cliches and all the language that we use and the sayings, and that was one of them that I always really enjoyed of his. So, yeah, it's always unexpected, always. I guess I take that back. There's some where you can just kind of see that powder keg building and know it's going to be something bad, but majority of the time, I think it's always unexpected. Majority of the time, it's always a quiet neighborhood. We don't need to keep saying that. I mean, these cases have happened everywhere and anywhere. I mean, who would have thought? I think what are we going on, maybe 15 years, that guy that walked into the Amish school in Pennsylvania,
right,
killed all the little girls. And that was completely out of the norm. I mean, nobody would have expected that. But there it is. It happens. So our cliche in the business that they've got about it can happen anywhere. It's true. It can happen anywhere, and people need to be aware of that fact. And I don't want to say you need to be scared, but you need to be cautious. You need to be aware that these things are a possibility. Just be aware of your surroundings. That doesn't happen anymore. Everybody's got their nose on their phone.
Oh yeah. I love it when you go to a restaurant and there's an entire family sitting there and they're like this.
Yeah.
Nobody talks to each other.
Or, I mean, where you're at is a highly populous area. I'm on the University of Illinois campus. It's pretty much where I live. I don't know how many kids walk right in front of cars, and they're clueless. I mean, I don't know. The job I do now is loss prevention, and you see these people that have no idea what's going on around them, and that baffles me. Being into what I'm into, they could have somebody following them for blocks, and they never would friggin' know. And that's in the arena that you and I like. That's a scary proposition.
It is, and when I worked loss prevention, we had this case where we had him right on video. This guy unzipped his pants, pulled everything out, and he walked around shaking it. I know at least 5 women who were shopping, and not one of them saw it. Not one of them looked up.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And he's standing like, 2 or 3 feet away and doing this. So then he went and he got some ladies' underwear, and I won't even say what he was doing, but he started following women again. And this is in a store. This is in a department store. And these women are just shopping, and it's right there. If they would have turned around, it would have been they would have bumped. And I'm thinking, my God, what is going on here? So And the pillow aisle. Weird things always happen in the pillow aisle for some reason.
Well, fortunately, mine's mostly grocery, so I don't have a pillow aisle. But and they stick to the norms, the alcohol section and the meat area. But if I'm down on the floor and I'm looking at things, it's just things that I see. I just look at, and I'll mention it to like one of the girls at the cashier. Oh, did you see this? And she's like, no, I didn't notice that. I don't know. We're different people. We notice different things. I mean,
being in law enforcement, you have this, like you walk in a room and you instantly scan. You sit at a restaurant.
Right.
I always have to face the door. You probably do too.
Yep. And
Everybody that knows me now will go, okay, I know where you want to sit. So
yeah, occasionally I have people that don't, that they go to take their seat, and I was, do you mind if I sit over there instead? I mean, it's just one of those things. I guess maybe I don't know if I'd say lucky. My dad is a Vietnam vet, and so I grew up around somebody that, yes, he's always back to the wall, facing the door. So maybe that was instilled in me a little bit, but then it helped doing what I do, that just be observant. And that's something that's gone way by the wayside. Nobody's observant of anything anymore. And I know I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago about how come we haven't seen any new serial killers, like in the past 5-10 years, finding people to get caught. Well, one is I think it's harder to get away with, but I'm wondering if we're not going to see an increase based on people's lack of awareness anymore. I got to think, if I'm a predator and I'm paying attention to what people are doing, I'm thinking that's easy pickings. I don't know. Do you? I mean, you feel the same way, probably, right?
purse thieves.
You're making easy picking.
We would get somebody reporting that their wallet or their purse was stolen. Okay, when did you last see it? Well, I was on aisle 15 looking at this, and then I walked over just real quick to aisle 1. Where was your purse? Oh, I left it in the basket.
Yeah.
Just little things.
It's little things, but as people have pointed out, and I mean, I was a big fan of the TV show Dexter, because Dexter did point out a number of things. He's like, predators can recognize predators, and predators, you and I know this, and anybody that's watching this probably knows, predators are great at picking out potential prey. You add in a few things of, all right, you're somebody that they like the look of you, you fit their victim profile, and then you never take your nose off of your phone, you're making it way too easy.
Yeah, you see these people and you think you could be snapped up in a second, and you probably text or you probably do a Snapchat to say, look, I'm being kidnapped,
Exactly.
I mean, one of my daughters is like that. She would Snapchat, or she would take a picture of herself, here I am being kidnapped at gunpoint,
Right. Yeah. Or they don't know who to call or how to act. I mean, even we're going back probably 10 years ago now, when I worked in dispatch, it would be a parent who's closer to my age calling us to say that their kid just called and said the house is on fire. They didn't call 911, they called mom and dad, who then turn around and call us. Now that seems small and trivial, but think about how much time we've wasted here.
Seconds.
It's the same type of situation. There's nothing wrong with calling 911 if it seems to be a real emergency. Don't call when the dogs are barking and you're mad at them. But
or you did like your order at the drive-thru. I've seen that too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, me too. And yeah, don't do that. But if there's if there's a fire, if you are personally in danger, make that call. Don't call your friends. Don't post on social media that this is what's going on. Oh my God, this guy's a creep type of stuff. Get the professionals out there.
Most definitely. So your event, Dark History and Horror Con, I think one of the problems that people would have when they just look at it, the poster, or read about it, glorifying criminals. Is it going to celebrate criminal acts? The murderabilia folk, who are a totally different breed altogether. Is this going to do any of these things, or?
It is not a murderabilia event. I do not glorify any of these guys. As I mentioned previously, I do use that imagery, but that imagery is to open the door, to bring you in, to tell you how it really is. That's an unfortunate byproduct of how we have become, that I have to do that. But for better or worse, to sit there and post, you know, all the victims of Virginia Tech or all the victims of Columbine or all the victims of one of these serial killers and use that imagery on a poster, I hate to say it, people aren't going to know what that is.
Right.
So the imagery is used to give you the idea that this is going to be the topic, but it is never, I never have people that married a serial killer in prison or any of this other stuff. I've written to some of them. I like to see what they write back. For me, it's the psychological aspect of it. I'm not asking about their crimes. I'm not asking why they did. One guy that wrote to me that I know everybody in that field knows, Philip Jablonski, he loved to try to shock you. So he told you every little detail. I mean, first letter to me, he's writing everything that he did to his victims. And I was just like, yeah, okay, I don't care. And then I would ask, in my responses, I would ask probing questions, which of course he would never answer. He always would just stick with, here's the shock value. So if you're coming for the idea that you're going to find other people that just absolutely love these guys and think they're heroes, I'd like to think that's not going to be what you find at my show. I can't speak for the whole population. There might be a couple people like that, but
Sure.
If I have a major fascination with any of these guys, and I do have a major fascination with all of them, it is more trying to figure out what makes them tick and how they work. When I have speakers such as yourself and John Ferrick, John wrote Wrecking Crew about the Stephen Avery case. That's his big book. But his previous books were all miscarriages of justice books. A case that happened in Beatrice, Nebraska, where I think there was 6 innocent people tried and convicted and later proven to be absolutely innocent for linkage blindness, and the cops just needed to have their people, and these were bad people that needed to go away. So he's a miscarriage of justice guy. He'll speak about that. I do have David Thibodeau, who was a survivor from the Waco Inferno. There was only 9 people that came out of the complex the day that burned down, and he was one of the 9. I had him in 2019. He spoke on that. He'll speak on that again this year.
Oh, okay.
So
fascinating. So he can give us, this fellow can give us an idea of what it was like in Waco.
Yes.
And
yes,
and
if
Koresh
anybody
and
is
Branch Davidians. So
exactly.
So this way, if we're educated there, we will be able, hopefully, to recognize the cult behavior.
Right.
Okay.
And he has some great perspective on that word cult as well. And I like to think that I'm an open-minded enough person that I could hear what he had to say. He said, yeah, that was a conscious decision by the government and by the media to start calling it a cult, but they'd been around for a long time and never labeled as a cult prior to that. So the dynamics of how things have worked with wording even is different. But yeah, David has written a book. It was formerly titled A Place Called Waco. Now it's called Waco. That Netflix series that came out, I think, 1.5 years, 2 years ago, that's based on David's book. So David got a lot of attention, which is good. He wanted to call a lot of attention to what actually happened there, the government's overreach, and just mistakes. And he's the first one to admit David Koresh did things that he shouldn't have done, but the government did things they shouldn't have done also. It was truly a both sides type of event. So I like to get into that. I posted on my I think on one of the Instagrams, either for the convention or for the podcast, and I had a guy reach out that intimately knew somebody who was affected by Joel Rifkin. It was his girlfriend was killed by Joel Rifkin. And I always invite that. That's what I hope to get out of my conventions every time, is I want to meet somebody who has experienced it. And you tell me, not the news telling me, not a framed TV show, not a book, not anything else that is trying to tell us what exactly happened. I want to hear your experience. I've been in touch with a Jonestown survivor that I would love to have come sometime, but we'll have to see. But I've made a
at
lot of
this
contact.
at this year's Dark History and Horror Con, you're going to have someone that survived Waco, the Branch Davidians.
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to have filmmakers talk about their work.
Correct.
Authors talk about their investigation.
Authors, yes.
Okay.
I do have for the paranormal crowd. We do have some paranormal things as well. That's been an arena that's still somewhat new to me. I'm a skeptic, but I like to hear what they have to say. And I have found that most people that believe in hauntings and paranormal activities, they really have to know their history. And
Yes.
I'm the history guy. So that's where the connection is for me, is they can teach me about, here's the past that might have led to this. I don't even know how I want to describe it, but here's the events that are happening now that might be unexplained. Here's the history that happened that might have led to that. And that's where my connection is made with it. So we have Coyote Chris Sutton, who is a big name in the paranormal field. Chris will be there as well. I've talked to him on Zoom a couple times because he's into shamanism and Native American history, and so am I. So he teaches me a lot there. He'll be there. Ron Murphy, who is called the cryptozoology. He's written a few books on Bigfoot and some other cryptozoology. Yeah, easy for me to say, huh?
Right.
Some other cryptid. We'll go with cryptids. Some other cryptids. He's going to be there. One, I hope I pronounce her name correctly. It's a friend of yours that you recommended, and her and I actually got together, and she's going to come. She asked if there was a speaking spot. Sonova
Cantrell.
Right?
Yep. She is an
Cantrell.
expert on organized crime.
I have yet to announce her, but Sonova is on board as coming to be both at a table and to speak. And trying to remember others that I have. I do this all myself. I don't have my little team.
I know. That's amazing to me that you're putting all of this together by yourself, and how, because like the inside of my head looks like a file cabinet that someone dropped from 50 feet.
That's me.
So
yep.
I don't see how you do it, what you do, putting it all together. I mean, that is just amazing. And, I was thinking also,
I appreciate it.
When you were talking about the horror part of the horror con, in history, the story of werewolves and vampires and all of this, that came out of true crime.
Exactly. Yeah. I have yet to get him. I'm hoping to get him one of these years. It's just always when I have it, his schedule doesn't work out well. Peter Vronsky.
Oh, that's my buddy. Yeah.
Oh, God, I've told him that I am just dying to actually meet him. Yes. And I have, what was the first one that he put out. And it goes back and explains that as well. I have not read Sons of Cain yet.
Oh, this is good. This is one of the best true crime books that I've read. Yeah. And
see and it's killing me that I can't think of the name of his first one that I have. I thought the same of his. I call it one of the Bibles of true crime that I have, because he takes it back to like the 1500s. And that mythology came from the idea that, well, humans can't act like this, so we have to have an explanation for why this person was ripped to pieces. So now it's got to be a werewolf. Yeah, and I tell people that all the time for the horror crowd. Buffalo Bill, Norman Bates, Leatherface, that's all Ed Gein. All those are based on Ed Gein. You have so many of them. For the people that are newer to this stuff, the Scream franchise, Ghostface, that's Danny Rawling. I mean, that's based on Danny Rawling's crimes. That's where I had to bring in the horror crowd, simply to try to bring them in. I mean, our true crime fans are avid, but I've noticed as far as attending events, they'll buy the books, they'll watch the shows, they'll watch the movies, but actually coming out to an event, I think there's still some of that stigma that attaches itself, and they don't necessarily feel comfortable coming to an event that is all about that. So we brought in horror a few years ago because that crowd, they're loud and proud. I mean, they want to be there. So.
But again, it's still related, because think if Jack the Ripper's crimes would have happened only X number of years ago than they did, they would have blamed
Right.
it on a beast, a werewolf, or a
Exactly.
vampire.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
you know.
probably maybe 100 years prior to when they happened, because they were 1898. So yeah, you go to 1798, and yes, it would have been exactly like you said. It would have been a werewolf most likely that
Some
ripped
kind of
these people to
demon,
shreds.
right? Or,
Yeah,
being taken over by the devil. So there would have been some kind of a
right.
explanation other than an individual going about committing these crimes.
Yeah, especially an Englishman. I mean,
Right?
because they like to, yeah, no, they don't want to view themselves as being that kind of person, but yeah, and that's a whole other can of worms. I just recently with some friends, I showed them Citizen X about Andrei Chikatilo and how in Soviet Russia, that's an American problem. We don't have serial killers here, and that's how he got away with all his stuff for so long. So yeah, the list goes on and on. The interest and the intrigue goes on and on. The education, as you mentioned previously, the education is constant, and I love that, and I hope other people embrace that idea as well. That you might think you know a lot about true crime, you could find out so much more.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's so many cases. I've always been kidded by friends and by coworkers that I'm their serial killer expert. I'm like, guys, I know a lot of them, but I'm not foolish enough to think I know everything. But I like to try to learn everything.
Yeah, it's never ending. And what I like too about your dark history and horror con is people will have the time to stop at each booth, look
Yes.
over what they've got, and talk to the authors, the filmmakers, the writers, the researchers. You have time.
Right.
You're not stuffed in a room with 5,000 other people, trying to get to
Exactly.
a crowd, or trying to get to a presentation in time, or decide, okay, what do I want to go see? And
Right.
it's priced for everyone can afford.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my ticket price is $15, and I think I did some looking when I was curious about CrimeCon. I think their cheapest one was 150 something, and
Mm,
that's just nuts to me. I never want to be that way. And as far as the show, yeah, I am not a big corporate show where you're going to run across tens of thousands of people. I would like to draw a couple thousand. My highest has probably been about 1,500, but spread throughout the day,
mm-hmm.
going to spot to spot. Yeah, I know that is some feedback that I've gotten that everybody has always appreciated about my show is you don't feel like you've got to push past the tables and not really see or talk to anybody. You can actually have these conversations without having to pay the $35 meet and greet fee or some crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that either. I mean, if one of the celebrities that I might have from a movie wants to charge for stuff, I don't say no, but most of the time, yeah, just go up and have the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
it's
and
something you
even
can
then,
take away from the show.
even if you're not personally interested, I have a nephew that's just mad about The Walking Dead. So when you had the
Yes.
guys who had been in the show, the television show, and
Yep.
I got, my nephew the autographs, he was on cloud nine. Oh
Right.
my God, you met, so even if
Yeah.
it's not your thing, it's somebody else's thing. And what a
Exactly.
great gift, a Christmas gift was I got him. And there was one fellow that he was just so kind, and he had even given my nephew a private message and such. And so you meet these folks
Yeah.
and get signatures and photos for other people even.
Yeah. Yeah. And my thing has always been I'm a pretty laid back guy, and my show tends to reflect that. I mean, I have gone out of my way a few times. I've had people interested in coming to be guests, and for better or worse, I'd heard about their reputation. I'm like, no, that's not going to be a fit for my show because I'm not going to have drama, and I'm not going to have prima donnas and stuff like that. It's not my thing, and I don't want to subject fans to that either. I have a little bit of control. I mean, yes, I want to build the audience. I want to build the audience, but I also want to make sure that the people are going to fit the laid back type attitude, not be, not have to be in your face and not have to be, well, I was in this, don't you know who I am type of.
Right.
I'm not about that type of stuff.
Right.
It's great that you were in that, but And I have found that the horror and the true crime, both communities are really good about that. I mean, there are some guys that are, I don't know what kind of language I should use on your show, but there are some guys that are definitely a-holes that think they are God's gift because they were in something 20 years ago. And yeah, one guest in particular sticks in mind that has really ridden that gravy train and continues to do so, and I just wasn't impressed, and I won't have him back. So, and then there's others that are just every year they're like, hey man, if you're doing it, I'm there. And I love doing this show, and I love how laid back it is, and yeah, they'll always be there. So
well, it's always a lot of fun to meet folks and talk to folks, and both in the field and then people who are just interested in it, who want to know more. And I just, it's a very enjoyable show. It's very laid back, and there's just so much information a person can get. So it's the Dark History and Horror Con. Tell us again, Mr. Brian Ward, when and where it's going to be.
October 23rd at the I Hotel in Champaign, Illinois. I do not have a website because I just couldn't keep up, but it's all over social media, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. Somebody recently got me into TikTok saying that would be a place to promote stuff, but I don't.
I still don't know how to work that
person.
I don't even know how to work Instagram. I can't even put a picture of my dog on Instagram.
They're making it tougher and tougher, Judith. I'm not kidding. This Facebook business suite that they switched to, supposed to be user friendly, is 10 times less friendly than it used to be. So yeah, find us all over Facebook. That's probably still my biggest platform that I post things on. And come join us October 23rd.
Okay, now there's also a link on truecrimebook.net. There's an area for all the true crime events that are going to be going on this year, where it's kind of a catch-all, where if you want to know, okay, what's happening, you go to that page, you look it up, and you say, oh, look at this. There's the Dark History and Horror Con. There's something else going on in Tennessee. There's a tour available, at such and such. So it's all going to be a one-stop shop, so to speak, for all things true.
I remember you sending me the link. I apologize for forgetting about that that platform as well. I remember you sending me a link and saying it was going to be on there. That's what we were talking about, the inside of our head. I have so many places I used to try to keep straight that I forget sometimes. So I know you should be able to just Google Dark History and Horror and come up with something.
Good deal.
Find our information there. Ticket link is up on Facebook. That's through Eventbrite. I think everything's up there. If not, fire me a question, man. I try to get back to them as soon as I can.
There you go. And I want to know about this podcast you got going on, your new podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and where we can hear.
That one it's called Dark History Time with Brian. I have kept them pretty short and sweet. I think I've done about 5 episodes so far. Most of them half hour or less, where everyone so far has been cases that are not very well known that I happen to know about. I've added some local flavor, I suppose you could say. I did one on Orville Lynn Majors, who was a angel of death just across the border in Clinton, Indiana. They, I cannot remember the numbers they attributed to him. I think it's upwards of 150 that they think he could have been responsible for. He was only convicted of 6. So I did a podcast on him. There was a spree killer that came through Illinois. He actually went to the U of I and shot at some Asian students on the campus of the U of I in I think that was 98, 99. He followed a man named Matthew Hale, who was a white supremacist in East Peoria, Illinois. Well, this guy, Ben Smith, the reason he really stuck with me is when he went on his spree, he killed a former Northwestern University basketball coach. Ricky Birdsong was one of his victims. So he just went around shooting at minorities the 4th of July weekend of 98, I believe it was. Ended up killing himself in Salem, Illinois. In June and July both, I just did a little pod where I simply hit on dates in that month where dark history took place. I think I did one on the Tulsa race massacre.
Oh,
so
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating piece of history. Sad.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Ridiculous is the word that comes to mind for me. But yeah, they're easy to digest. Like I said, 30 minutes or less. I have had some people hit me up, hey, you need to do more, dive deeper, and I will, but I'm still getting my footing underneath me. That's what I want to present to people is cases, and I've said from the get-go, and like I mentioned earlier in our interview, anybody can do the episodes on the big guys, and I probably will at some point, but that's not my focus right now. My focus right now is more smaller things that I feel are significant that people should probably know about. And as such, my audience is still small, but yet growing. So we will see.
That's how it is. So tell me how we can hear this podcast.
I know that I am on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, some other ones that I don't know the names of, I'm not super familiar with, but all of it, if you go to a website just called anchor.fm, that's the platform that we use, and that distributes them to other areas. I think looking at my little analytics, that's where most people still listen to it, is on anchor.fm. But like I said, I know it's on Spotify. I know it's on Apple Podcasts. I think it's on one called Breaker. I think it's on one called Pocket Casts. It should be on nearly every platform that you can find podcasts on. And it's just Dark History Time with Brian.
Okay. Good deal.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir. Well, Mr. Brian Ward, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us about special events and solving the problems of the world and your new podcast and listening to my dog.
Right. Yeah, hey, I love it. And I thank you very much for the opportunity, Judith. It means a lot to me personally that someone of your stature in the field would care to talk to me on your show. So when I get it figured out a little bit better and when I get myself aligned a little better on my podcast, you're definitely one of the ones that I want to have come on and talk about your work as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll show up.
Okay.
All right, sir.
I don't even know if we have to put our faces on it. We just got to use our voices. So
there you go. Then I don't have to get all makeup on and my new hat.
No. You can sit in the comfy clothes. You can have the dogs in your lap. You can do whatever you want.
All right, sir. Well, thank you so much. This is Judith A.
Thank you.
I'm a true crime author and criminologist. I am also the creator and host of this video series, Best True Crime. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. We have so many more videos that are there to educate and interest, and also tell you a little bit more about true crime and why people do what they do and where these events are happening. Sometimes I'm able to go live. Sometimes I'm able to go at the place, location of the event and take you right there as close as you can get. So. But be safe out there. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Best True Crime. I'm Judith A. Yates, and I hope you subscribe. Be sure to visit truecrimebook.net and be safe out there.